Here's a serious one for winter, and it is quite important. It was Ed from Nanaimo, BC. He's had some questions on how to wire a transfer switch for a generator, which has been required by the code since the 1998 Eastern ice storm. Now, many of you are old enough to have lived through that ice storm. Some of you are young ones, and you just heard of it as sort of an instant history. This place that we're standing in right now was in the heart of the southern Quebec part that got hit by the ice storm. There was no power in this building for, I think it was 4 weeks, even though we could drive an hour away to Montreal, and everything was warm and cozy in most of Montreal. But it was where all the power was down because of the ice storm. So everybody was buying generators. What happened with that, there were tons of generators improperly used that actually caused a lot of damage, injury to linesmen working on the power lines, because they had a power line that they thought was dead because it was cut off from the power station. The other end was still hooked into your house. Somebody hooked a generator into the power box. They said, well, it's dead. Let's just put power in here. And that went back through the line and started knocking these guys off ladders. So very quickly, after the ice storm, a law came out that said generators may not be attached into the household wiring without a transfer switch, a device that's going to basically protect the lineman. So that's the very first and most important objective of transfer switch, is that you cannot put generator electricity on the utility lines at all. Okay, now let's take some look here at some details of these things. Here's the generator outside your house, and the best way is not running the generator's extension cord through a window or door, which is never quite closed, and that's not so good when you're in a crisis winter situation, is do ahead of time where you actually put an electrical box out here that you plug into. And this one is a reverse electrical box because we have a female plug going into a male socket here. And then it goes through, even if on the other side you just have another socket where then you could plug in extension cords and go to the house. That's the right way to get through the wall. And that way it's winter tight, it's safe from water, and that connection allows you to have it on the inside. Now, whether you just have an extension cord and you run it over to a freezer or refrigerator, that's fine. And that works because you're not sending it back to the line. Now, if you want to run it in here, if you look inside, to a special transfer switch connected with the electrical panel, what we need to look at is that ideally what's happening, here's your very small schematic of the old electrical panel. Here's the line that we would like to send, be powered by the generator. So we take that line and we unhook the wire from the house from it. So the wire from the house is way out over here someplace. So you have your line out there. It's been unhooked from the panel. We wire the panel into the transfer switch so it comes in here. Now the transfer switch could take that connection and send it out here because that's where you came in and connected that line, which goes to the fridge and the freezer, maybe even the furnace. So the things that you think that you could run with a generator. If you're going to turn on the generator, you flip this switch over to the other side, and now the power comes through here. Now you'll notice what happens is the generator cannot get out to the power lines up here. There's no connection with the rest of the house. It only connects to the 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 lines that you chose down here. And then if you flip back to the other side, they get fed, as they always have been, from the panel box, and the generator is unhooked from the whole thing. So that transfer switch works pretty well. And they're, for a domestic household, they're not big things because your generators are not really that big. A generator, well, like the one that Ed from Nanaimo, who wrote the question in, says that his generator is 3,500 watts. That's 30 amps. So it's like 1 or 2 lines, 2 15-amp lines, perhaps. And so they've got 2 lines in the house that are going to be used like that. They might just go to outlets where you could put in extension cords, or they might go straight to the refrigerator. Um, but that's feeding it. Now, he came back to me and he says, well, look at what I'm trying to do. And he sent me a sketch now. So let me get to his sketch. There's a sketch. He says, this is the way I want to do it. And if I do this, I'm sure that I'm not going to send any electricity to the power company, because if my generator is over here and my power company is over here, and I just go on top of the main panel, so no, right before any electricity comes in the house, he wants to switch here or switch there. Absolutely true, Ed, that will not send the generator to the power company. But you got 2 problems with your plan here. Number one is, you yourself said that you would have to turn off most of the breakers on that panel, because if you had them all on, the generator would just blow up trying to feed it all. Well, and that's one problem of this whole system is, yes, this could function, and if you really were disciplined to have only 2 lines going out to the house and everything else turned on, things could be fine. But it's with human error, you could overload the generator by forgetting a switch or just clicking it too much. Not too bad, because the generator has protective devices on it that will kick out the circuit if you demand too much electricity, which means you lose all your electricity. You got to go out, reset the, well, you got to unplug some things, reset the generator, and go again. So, okay, utility's safe, and it kind of works for the house. What's the other problem? Money. Because take a look at this as a basic problem we're having here. The transfer switch, in your case, would have to be big and strong enough to handle the whole panel. We have panels now that are standard 100 amp, very common 200 amps, more common than ever before 400 amps. So if you're going to run the power company through the transfer switch to the main panel, this has to be able to handle maybe 200 amps. I don't write very well, but it may have to handle 200 amps, which means that is a mother of a transfer switch, and it's going to cost you a fortune. That's an industrial transfer switch. And it's totally wasted, because all you need, because all you can get out of your generator is 30 amps. So instead of buying this great big monstrous thing that could possibly feed all that, in addition to having the thing of turning on and off switches to make it work while you're in an emergency situation, if you get this transfer switch and put it in the way it should be put in, then you'll find that it's simply going to give you a flip-flop from one to the other. This works all the time. It flows through, and that flip-flop takes care of it. So you need a transfer switch, and you need a small distribution box for the 1 or 2 or 3 lines that you're going to be feeding out from the generator. Okay? And remember, if you don't know a lot about what you're doing with electricity, get an electrician. At least get the advice from an electrician so that you know where you're going.